Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about, if you are from the oil and gas industry, how to reframe the oil and gas industry narrative to those who are not a part of the oil and gas industry and have a negative sentiment on it. Before we get to the content, please be sure to like this video. Subscribe so you can get more content in oil and gas and professional development topics. And please be sure to comment on the video below so I can incorporate your feedback into future videos. Please be sure to hit that notification bell when you do subscribe, because I'm trying really hard to upload daily, but in reality I'm going to upload whenever I want. Well, let's get to the content. Let's face it, the oil and gas industry has a negative public sentiment. I just taught a class in AI mastery without coding through Advantage Learning, one of the businesses that I run. In this AI mastery without coding, one of the capstone projects is to understand sentiment of the oil and gas industry with relation to CCUS, CCS, energy transition, oil and gas drilling. Some of the outputs from one of the students is that there was negative sentiment in CCUS in oil and gas drilling, an overall negative sentiment. But there's a positive sentiment in the energy transition, especially a focus on renewables. With that being said, that just extends the negative sentiment of the oil and gas industry being a dirty industry because we are working on fossil fuels and we're working on non-renewable resources. But a lot of people don't really remember the fact that we rely on this oil and gas energy. It is a low-cost, efficient energy, and it's uplifted quality of lives for people. So today I'm going to talk about how to reframe the narrative when communicating with other people in terms of understanding from both perspectives of how to better the oil and gas industry and how the oil and gas industry especially has been very beneficial to generations in the past, in the present, and definitely in the future. Where I want to make, that isn't to say that I'm denying the energy transition in this conversation. Rather, I'm talking about how to have a fruitful conversation to not just have a negative sentiment on the oil and gas industry, rather focus on understanding the benefits of the oil and gas industry, being able to communicate that and have other people understand the benefits of the oil and gas industry, and then we can have a healthy dialogue and a balanced view of the oil and gas industry, whereas there are opportunities to improve, where there are opportunities for the energy transition, but at the same time we need those skills in petroleum engineering and oil and gas to help us get there. Question I would ask somebody who has a negative sentiment in the oil and gas industry is, what are their resources? Where are they getting their information from? To understand where they're getting their information from, frame it with the intent that you are trying to learn more about their perspective. Then, once you understand where they're getting their information from, if it's definitely from a biased source where they're more focused on environmentally friendly solutions or renewable resources, then you can share your resources. And if they're from more balanced views, then you can start with a healthy dialogue on where you can get your information from and have a healthy exchange of where other sources that you can take to consider. Some books that I would recommend: The Moral Case of Fossil Fuels and Fossil Future by Alex Epstein. You can also subscribe to his Substack on Alex Epstein Energy Talking Points. And I'm also subscribed to his email on that. So once you get to his energy talking points on his Substack, you can understand some of the climate change policies, you can understand the conversations in the energy industry, and develop some ammo and how you can respond in reframing the industry narrative to somebody that has a negative sentiment towards the oil and gas industry. Next exercise that I would suggest is a yes and exercise. Their resources may be heavily leaning towards green policies, the Sierra Club, you can just name it anything that you want, the Gasland movie, anything that you want. However, I would suggest do a yes and exercise. Say yes, there's a negative sentiment towards the oil and gas industry, and the oil and gas industry has helped elevate quality of life for generations of people in impoverished communities and has uplifted people from energy poverty. You can also rely on those resources that I mentioned to you, such as the 2 books and the Substack that I've talked about before. Having a yes and displays empathy. Having a yes and displays that you're not coming from the defense. And having a yes and mentality also opens your mind to have a more balanced view of the oil and gas industry and reframes the industry narrative to be more balanced as opposed to more one leaning towards the other. The next thing that I would talk about in reframing the industry narrative is talking about it. As an industry, we don't do a great job in discussing our pros because we are so bogged down in coming from the defense on the cons or the negative sentiment analysis. However, if we talk about the pros, the ESG metrics that we're measuring up against and holding ourselves accountable, the community service and outreach that we're doing on energy literacy, on energy education, uplifting the energy for people from energy poverty with low cost energy, and then keeping in mind that there are areas of improvement, talking about it, posting it on social media, and actively going to people and talking about the positive sentiment of oil and gas industry from your perspective can help balance the view and balance the playing field in terms of reframing the industry narrative in the oil and gas industry. The last thing that I would finally have you do, and none of this is in order of importance or in a chronological order, but the last thing that I would like to mention is continue to do your research, subscribe to Energy News, and check your sources with published journal articles and peer-reviewed papers. Once you have those published journal articles and peer-reviewed papers, you have something that is technically sound, and then you can compare to how the media is treating some of this technology advancements or the technological innovation. And then you'd be able to understand what the missing gaps are for you to start reframing the industry and planning your masterminded way of reframing the industry narrative in the oil and gas industry. Starting with self-education on what the industry gaps are will enhance your credibility, will build rapport with people on the other side, and help start that healthy dialogue that is so much needed than rather having inflammatory dialogue about the oil and gas industry. Final words here is that we can't stay silent. We have to speak up, but not come from the defensive, but rather start a dialogue such as a yes and question the status quo. Question the status quo of the negative sentiment that is there. And then if somebody is open to learning about more resources, recommending those resources as well. I, for one, have had to come from the defense, and that was the worst mistake that I've ever made. I've lost friendships when it came to coming from the defense. But whenever I started with the yes and exercise and talked about the energy transition in a healthy dialogue, knowing that the oil and gas industry, the skill sets that are needed are to help enhance the production of some of those renewables, allowed people to have a more open mind and a balanced view of the oil and gas industry. Again, this is a personal anecdote, but I would rather use some of the social psychology and interpersonal dynamics here to reframe the industry, reframe the narrative of the oil and gas industry. Well, folks, that's everything that I wanted to talk about today. As usual, please be sure to like this video, subscribe so you can get more content in oil and gas and professional development topics, and please be sure to comment on the video below so I can incorporate your feedback into future videos. This is the Iron Lady, the CGO, and the CEO, and I'm signing off.